Hi everybody. Today we're going to be working in this issue of Colouring Heaven here. This is the Steampunk special by Lynn. This is quite an old issue that's actually out of stock on the website, and this is a copy that I managed to pick up on Vinted quite recently. And as it is a second-hand copy, it does have a couple of pages already coloured in it. So I thought today I could go ahead and work on one of those already coloured images, as I do love to work back into images that have already been coloured, the kind of second-hand images you get in books that you buy online. So I thought maybe I could bring you guys along with me today for the colouring session and see how I work into this image. And the one that I'm going to be colouring in is this one here. The first image, this lady here. You can see she already has been coloured pretty nicely there with water-based markers for the most part. So I'm going to try and keep the colour scheme pretty much the same. I'm not really going to be covering any of this with acrylic markers or anything like that. What I've decided to do is mainly just go in and try and smooth out the pen marks with some pencil shading. You can see I have tried here, gave it a little bit of a start, and that is working really well. I'm going to keep the colours mainly the same. We do have a nice colour scheme going on there. I'll maybe tone down this green a little bit. That's looking a little bit of a highlighter green. And what I was thinking is to turn these belts and buckles here into more of a leather colour. I think that might work quite well. I think for her skin on her face, I might try bringing in the water to smooth out that colour a little bit, see if we can get some nice smooth shading for her skin. And for some parts of this image, there seems to have been alcohol marker used, which is unusual for second-hand pages in my experience anyways. A few areas have been coloured with what seems to be alcohol markers, as we can see on the back there. We do have the alcohol marker coming through, or what seems to be alcohol marker. Of course, I can't know for sure. So for these areas, we're going to have to try and be a little bit creative, see what we can get going there. I think the wings we can maybe get away with just a little bit of shading, keeping to that colour scheme. And the clouds, yeah, I have a couple of ideas how we may be able to work that. I'll be filling in the background most likely. As usual, I don't have concrete plans of the whole image. I'm starting with the clothes, the things that I can visualise how I'm going to actually work with. And this is a nighttime scene. We do have a little moon there. Done with gold gel pen, I think, from the looks of that. So we'll keep that moon there. See if we can get a little bit of a nighttime sky going on. Maybe a gradient with alcohol markers, as I do really want to practice my gradients with the alcohol markers. But anyway, enough of me rambling about how I'm going to be doing this. Let's get right on and start doing it. So we'll zoom us in and we'll get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to be a little bit careful how I do go about this, is try and bring some water into this pen on her face to see how well these colours will dilute and give me something I can more easily shade into a skin tone there. I want to try and keep her skin tone this pale colour. She does have the blonde hair going on there that I'll try and bring in some pencils to shade. But I thought maybe we could see if we could dilute this colour on her skin a little bit to give me something more easy to work with. And unfortunately it doesn't look as if this pen is diluting all that well. This is the older Colouring Heaven paper, so it will take a little bit of punishment with the water. And I don't think this ink, as I said, is going to be diluting all that well, to be perfectly honest. I'm being quite liberal with the water. I'm going to have to be careful around her lipstick there, but yeah, we do have a little bit of diluting going on, which might make it a little bit easier to shade on top, which is the aim of adding this water. It's making it a little bit easier to shade, especially these dark lines, these dark pen lines. If I can get those to dilute a little bit, then I'll call it a win. Then it'll be more easier to shade on top with the pencils, especially more opaque pencils like Prismacolors. You might be able to bring into a shade over her skin. But the paler we can make these pen lines, then the better. So we might just have to add quite a lot of water here and see how it dries. But if the whole image is coloured with the water-based markers, we do want to be careful that we don't get the water on any of the other colouring. Her arms here, not looking too bad. Oh, actually on camera, her arms are not looking too bad. You can maybe give that a little bit of a coat of water just to tone it down a little bit. Get those pen marks spreading out. And then we'll move on to our shading while that water dries. Maybe we'll have a better surface or a better base to be able to work on with our pencils if these lines at least get a little bit paler, which is what I'm hoping. And I have actually been ahead and started working on this kind of purple colour, which is this colour here in the pens. I've shaded this sleeve here, and I think we've got this working pretty well. I picked out a few pencils that I thought would be able to shade on top of this purple, and this is a complete mishmash of pencils. I'm not keeping to one set. I've pulled out a few that I think I might be able to get some nice shading going on with. So we do have a Castle Arts, which is Mulberry 039. We have a Prismacolor Dahlia Purple, PC1009. We have a Castle Arts Gold, which is purple, 029GP. And we actually have a Astra Pastelo pastel coloured pencil, which I bought quite a while ago. And I haven't really used because I'm not really big on the pastel colours. But that one seemed to work really well for smoothing these pen strokes in the highlights here. So I've gone ahead with that. I also have the white Prismacolor, always a good standby for the highlights on top of darker colours. And basically, I wasn't trying to make a lot of difference to this shading. I'm just trying to add a few little shadows where these kind of fold lines come into the close. And smooth out the pen lines where we have these quite harsh lines here. Try and blend those in a bit more. Okay, there's all the mulberry, that darker shade done. The next one I was coming in with is this Dahlia Purple, giving a more kind of pinker, more of an eggplant colour into these shadowy areas. It's kind of similar in tone to the darker pen strokes, so maybe help blend those in a little bit, is the thinking anyway. It seems to have worked on the top part of this sleeve, so yeah, I'm going with it as a good solution to blending out those pen marks. I do really love working on pages that have already been started, and yeah, the whole glow up idea, making it into a collaboration between myself and the original artist, who, if the original artist is watching, then thank you very much for the opportunity. I do love working back into other people's pages and having a little bit of a collaboration going on. So that is the Dahlia Purple. Next I have the Castle Arts Gold, just called Purple. This one is very, very close to the original colour of the pen, so it does help to smooth out those pen marks quite a lot. And when I was first starting my colouring journey, I used to work quite a lot with the water-based markers, and much like this really, just coming in with the water-based markers and doing my colouring, maybe adding a bit of gel pen stuff like that. I have actually been and done this exact pretty much thing to one of my older colourings, which was a Jasmine Beckett Griffith colouring. And we're moving on to the Pastelo pencil now. This is a kind of a purpley pink colour. These ones don't have names or numbers, I don't think, so I can't really give you the name or number. But this one seemed to be a purpley pink that would fit in quite nicely and help blend in those pen marks. At least make them not quite so noticeable. And for the extra highlighty areas, the old trusty Prismacolor pencil. A few little white highlights with the Prismacolor pencil. Again, helping to cover the areas where that, where those pen marks are showing through. Actually, that would be pretty dark under there. We do have a bit of a fold going on. And as usual, the white gel pen to really bring out the highlights in these areas. More around the outside. This lady would be backlit if we are going for a nighttime scene. And we have the moon in the background there. See that the moon is in the background there. So we have a little crescent moon. So it's going to be fairly dark. So there aren't going to be that many bright highlights in this lady. So that was how I was shading and smoothing out this darker purple here. And I think that's working really nicely to smooth out that pen colour. There do seem to be some different purple here. So what I was thinking, as we've made this purple more of the pinkish purple, more of that kind of eggplant colour, aubergine for anyone in the UK. Yeah, we've made it more of that kind of reddish purple. I thought if we could bring in a lavender for these frilly cuffs and the bits that seem to be this kind of more bluey lavender colour, that might work quite nicely there. Pen marks on this sleeve are not really showing super much, so yeah, we can quickly go over and shade that. And it looks like the pen marks on her face, now I'm looking up at it, those have evened out quite a lot there, so that's giving me a lot nicer base to move in and shade with my pencils. I'm quite happy with that. We'll get onto that once her clothes have been done, I think. And yeah, we might tone down this orange, I think, makes that look more of a leather colour. There's not much work actually needed on this lady here. It's basically just shading and evening out that colour. But let's have a look what we can actually do with this lighter purple here. Let's see if I can find a lavender colour. This one is from the Pastelo pencils. That's not working too badly. I think I might have a slightly darker shade of this kind of purple colour in the Castle Art, so I'll just have a quick look there, see what I can grab. We can always come in with the mulberry for the very darker areas, and again the white for the highlights. This one is called a Violet Deep. It is slightly bluer than the purple that is already down there, but I think we can work with it. We want to make this cuff look frilly, so I'll come in with the white. And we do want to make it look as if it is coming across the front of our lady's body as well. So yeah, we're going to have a few highlights here. And we can, as I said, come in with that mulberry colour. That's working quite well. I think if we bring in the white gel pen. Okay, I think that's working really well to show the difference between the colour of her blouse sleeves or the jacket sleeves. It's a little bit hard to tell which is which there, and the more lavender, or I think that would turn out to be pale violet, didn't it? The lavender colour of these cuffs here. I think that's working really well. We might be able to come up with a couple of little crystals for these little dots here. We'll see a little bit later on, but I will move on now to finish off these kind of purple areas, smooth those out and see where the land lies after that. I think we have done most of the biggest areas now. We have this collar to do here, which will make dark towards the inside and behind this kind of mechanical heart that she is holding. I want to make this collar darker behind her neck as well. Okay, we'll blend into this this one called Dahlia Purple or Dahlia Purple from the Prismacolors. We want to come out to the lighter colours towards the edge of the collar here, I think. So coming there from the Dahlia Purple into the purple, and then we'll be coming into the Astra Pastelo pencil as a highlight on the edges of these collar kind of points here. I want this to be fairly dark behind her glove there, because that would be lighter. Being in front of her body will make that lighter, hopefully make that stand out a little bit. We'll add a bit of a highlight where that collar curves around there. Highlight to her collar. We do seem to have strayed more towards the eggplant kind of colour on this collar, but yeah, I think it's working. I'll go with it. Maybe her collar is satin or something and is a little bit more shiny. That colour's coming through, and I do like to add in the highlights. When the pen works, I do like to add in the highlights as I go so I can see basically what I'm working with. So there we go. There's a colour. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this purple is actually blending out. Got the other part of her collar there. I have managed to find from my collection these little nail stickers, and I thought maybe we could use those. These are a very pale kind of minty green to bring in the green from her skirt. We can bring in the green into these little areas here, I'm thinking. Maybe we can make that work. I think those will work quite nicely there, just covering up that pattern with the green little stickers. And we do have some round ones on here as well that maybe we can bring in for the buttons on this glove once we've coloured that one in with the purple. just playing around and having a little bit of fun, which is what I do like to do when I'm colouring. I do love to bring in my little embellishments and things like that, so I think that's working really well. We'll carry on with doing this dark purple now. Just get the rest of her clothes that are all this colour, all the same colour, completed, so then we know that is done. We can move on to the next colour. We'll try and make this pretty dark around this heart. We want that to look as if it's metallic, so we'll be giving that some quite bright highlights, I think, around the outside. I'm guessing it's meant to be some sort of clockwork, mechanical heart there that she's got, so yeah, I'm guessing that would be metal. Now onto the eggplant colour, dahlia purple for this sleeve. This is something, as I've said, I've done on my past art. I've done on a Jasmine Beckett Griffith picture, and I am tempted to go back to some of my other colourings, and especially Johanna Basford. I think I do have a Johanna Basford book I would love to go in and do this kind of thing with. I think maybe we can go straight to the white on this sleeve. There's not so much area to be blending in our little pink colour, and some highlights around the outside there. We are smoothing out really nicely on this dark purple. I'm really quite happy with how this is going. This glove here, we're going to be using the dark purple, and then we have the light purple coming in for the edges. I'm not sure I can make that look super different to the colour of the glove, but we'll try. Maybe we'll just come in and highlight it. That does look different enough to me with the pen there, and because there are little narrow areas, there are not really any pen marks, so yeah, maybe we'll just highlight those bits on these trimmings. Come in with our two little crystals, and I think we'll be good to go with that glove there. There we go, that's awesome. We'll just add in a couple of highlights for these bits that are coloured with that bluish purple, and then we can come in with our little crystals. Add our little crystals for these buttons. There we go. I think that will bring the green in quite nicely into the purple. Yeah, I think that works really super well. If I try and use a little bit of white over this green of her skirt there, and then turn it into more of a minty green, maybe we can make that work. I think these pockets are the lighter purple. Again, there's not much in the way of pen marks there. We may even be able to bring in a couple of our green crystals there on the pockets. This is the first picture in the book, so there won't be any pictures to colour on top of it. But even though it is the first picture in the book, you would have to be careful not to put any pressure on the magazine. Close the cover and put pressure down on the magazine by stacking it tightly between other books or by piling more on top of it, because then the crystals will dent the cover. And that is true for any page, really. If you put lots of pressure onto a page that you have used a crystal on, it will dent any pages in front of it. So I do try and keep the ones that I've used crystals on, keep those not so tightly packed. But yeah, if the page is the first page in the magazine, then there won't be any problem with colouring pages in front of it, because there is no page in front of it, pretty much. Give a little heads up if anyone is wanting to use crystals in their colourings. Not as many pen lines here either, so I think I'll try and keep that original colouring coming through. Adding in a shading there, adding a little touch of this dahlia purple. Okay, a little bit of white on these frilly edges, I think. As there are not so many pen lines to be smoothed out, we're letting the original colour come through more on this frill at the bottom. And yeah, that's working really well. Really happy with that. So that's pretty much all of that kind of purple. Let's see if we can find a magenta colour in the Prismacolors maybe. Again, we could possibly come in with that mulberry for the darker colours, or maybe a dark red. I'll just go and have a quick look with the Prismacolors and see what we can pick up there. Okay, I don't think I've managed to change the colour too much there, but I think we've smoothed out the pencil lines quite nicely. And for that one, I was using the Prismacolors. So I'll just show you how I was doing that before I move on and finish off these pockets. Then we can maybe move on to make this green more of this kind of a minty green and see if we can get that working. So what I was using to shade the shadows was called Mahogany Red, a PC1029. I was coming in and bringing in some shadows with that. It is a slightly different, more of a red tone, but I couldn't find any dark kind of pinky purple, this magenta colour, that would work any better. There was a little bit of trial and error, and this is the best that I came up with. On the other side, there was a little bit of erasing going on there, but this is what we came up with. And the process red, I think, is a pretty close match to the actual water-based marker that was used here. And we are maybe toning the colour down a little bit. It's not quite so bright purple, but I don't think there's too much of a change there. Let's add a little bit more shading there where our waist comes in. And this one is the processed red, which seems to smooth out those pen lines quite well there. You can see that going over the top. It's not a bad colour match. It's as near as I could possibly get, and it is covering up those pen marks, while still, I think, keeping close to the original colour that we did have going on there. I found that the Azalea Pink, this is Castle Arts Gold, that was giving me some not too bad highlights, and then going over with the white Prismacolor. These are very subtle highlights with this Azalea Pink, but this is what was working on the other side, so I will show you pretty much what I actually did on this side. So whether this pink contributes to to the actual colouring all that much, I don't know. It is blending the colours slightly. Then I went in with the tried and trusted Prismacolor white. We can come in with some white highlights. I'll add a few little highlights to this frill as well. I have the pen out. And on the other side. These pockets are not needing super much shading. I'll just maybe, I put in a little bit of shadow with the, I think it was called Pale Violet, was it? Pale Violets, Castle Arts, and I'm bringing in this pastel pencil. A little bit of highlight. I'm just itching to put those little green crystals on there just to see how they work pretty much. What a gel pen. There we go, pop our crystals on there. Yeah, I think that's bringing the outfit together, having the green coming in. Okay, we'll just finish shading this kind of pink here before we move on. And I have spotted, yeah, finally realised she has got this hat going on here as well. So we can bring in a few more of our little green crystals up there maybe. And those colours on the hat are the same colour that she has going on with her outfit. So we can just move up and use the same colours. Finish off her hat. I like the way this process red is smoothing out that colour underneath. That is working super well. And I would really like to go on and do this in some of my original colourings. Maybe that's an idea for future videos again, going back to my old colouring, specifically that Johanna Basford book. I really want to go back to that Johanna Basford book and work on that some more. It is the only Johanna Basford book that I do have. It's the Secret Forest or Magic Forest. Is that the one? Where you're making the way through the forest to the castle. It was one of the very first books that I did get when I was starting adult colouring. I think my other half actually bought me that one when I first started adult colouring. But there was a lot of plants in it, and yeah, you all know I don't colour plants all that often, or trees, especially not trees, and yeah, that book was full of trees. But as it was a gift, I do want to go back and try and work in that one a little bit more. Go back to it and not have it languishing on the shelf for all eternity, not being coloured in. So the same colours we're using for this top part of her costume here. smoothing out the pen marks really, and just shading what we already had going on. And this pen really does not want to work on top of these pencils. And for these little bits that are coloured with the pen, I think I'll just add in the shadows. Were we bringing in that mulberry for the darkest shadows? We might have been. And we'll just leave the pen that was originally there for these little kind of seams. Yeah, that works well. This is part of our costume here. We'll just finish off here, move on and do her hat really, or at least the purple bits of her hat. And she does have that orange kind of strap on her hat there. So should we just dull down that orange a little bit, or should we make it more of a leather colour? Maybe more of a terracotta perhaps. I was thinking using alcohol marker, just thinking out loud, and then dabbing it with the hand gel, maybe on a cotton bud or something, to get a little bit of leather texture going on. I'm not entirely sure if that would work with that orange underneath, but we can try. I'm not sure entirely how the hand gel would affect a water-based marker. Would that make a lot of difference if we did put the alcohol marker on top of the water-based pen and then dabbed it with the hand gel? I'll find out in a little bit. Inquiring minds want to know. It's something I've never really tried, so yeah, of course, we'll give it a go. So that purpley pink there, kind of magenta colour, that's looking a lot smoother now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. Could possibly do with some darker shadows, seeing as we do have a nighttime scene going on. So to that end, I'll bring in a little bit of black, just to add some deeper shadows. For our hat, let's just shade this kind of more pinky purple, seeing as that's what we were working on. I'm tempted to try bringing in the gold pen for these kind of filigree bits here, just to make those stand out a lot more. Maybe just do an outline around these purple bits we already have. Yeah, I think that's fun. I can live with that. Okay, we have some darker purple. See if I can remember how I was doing these. So darker purple, we were going in with the mulberry first, weren't we? Oh, she has a clock face on the top of her hat. That's really cool. Nice. Okay, and we'll shade these more of the pinky purple bits. I'm just putting the darker shadow down towards the bottom of these parts, and then I'm going to blend the colour up towards the light at the top, because we do have the moon at the top there. And some white at the very top, and let's try and blend that out with this azalea pink. I think the white is maybe a little bit too much of a highlight there. For these clockwork kind of hands here, I'll come in with the gold pen again. Like that. And I wanted to tone down that orange a little bit into maybe a terracotta or a brown of some sort. So what I'm thinking of doing is going over that with alcohol marker and maybe dabbing it a little bit with hand sanitizer to try and get a bit of leather texture going on. I have no idea if that will work, but let's give that a bit of a go. I'm going to try going over it with this Y12. This is mahogany alcohol marker. This may work, it may not, and I'm thinking that if the orange underneath is quite bright, that will brighten up the brown, make it more of a potato brown kind of colour. Okay, there's my little experiment. I'm dabbing a tiny little bit of hand sanitizer onto these kind of leather bits now with the paintbrush, and the brown marker is actually fading out and showing the orange underneath, so I'm going to use that as my highlights. Having that kind of orange coming through, I'm just dabbing it on with a paintbrush into these kind of areas, maybe roughing it up a little bit. That's working quite nicely when I dab it with my finger to give a kind of leather texture here. We do have the orange of the original coming through, which is really nice. I wanted to keep as much of that going as I could of the original. So I think if I come in with a darker brown and just maybe shade a little bit, we'll be able to make that work as leather. And these circles here, I think they're supposed to be the holes for the belt buckle, so I'll just fill those in with a black Sharpie. Show we've got holes going on there. We've got another buckle here that we can come in with the gold pen. Okay, for the green of her skirt here and a few little odd bits here and there as well. I want that to match a little bit more closely to the minty green we have going on with our crystals. So I am going over those with a mint green, I think it's mint green light. No, it's just mint green, 107 GP Castle Arts gold pencil. These lighter areas. I can bring the white in to make it look slightly shiny in the middle there. The other stripes are a more yellowy green and I want to kind of desaturate them a little bit. So let's see if we can come in with this cadmium green and the cadmium green pale that I've used in a recent picture. They give a nice kind of yellowy green but a little bit more desaturated than what we actually have going on here. So that was cadmium green, this is cadmium green pale. Quite a bright green, bright kind of yellowy green, but a little bit less saturated and fluorescent than what we actually had there originally, I think. Although keeping with the same idea, which is what I do like to try and do, as I've said, when I'm working on an already coloured page. Maybe we can bring in a little bit of a white highlight in the middle there as well. Yeah, I think that's going to work for the darker stripes here. I'll see if I can find another green to shade those more minty green stripes as well. Maybe we should shade those with grey. Not entirely sure. Maybe a grey green of some sort. I just basically want this skirt to look more like the colour that we have going on. It's not a skirt, it is trousers, it's pants for anyone in the US. I've just realised, yeah, it's not a skirt. We have pants going on here, so we need to shade each leg of the pants separately. There we go, that green's toned down quite nicely. I'm going to see if I can find a kind of a greyish green to shade these lighter green stripes. This is Terra Verde from Castle Arts. Let's just see if we can make that slightly more of a greenish grey. I don't want to change it too much, but I do want to make it a little bit more toned down so that our colour of the crystals matches slightly better. We'll try blending that with the white maybe. Yeah, I've still got the black out here, so I'm trying to add a little bit of a shadow to this frilly bit to make that look a little bit more 3D. And I was thinking, getting a little bit distracted here again, while I have this hand gel out here, maybe I could try dabbing the steam with the hand gel to see if I can dilute that alcohol marker. If it is indeed an alcohol marker, maybe this will help us to find out whether it actually is or not. So I'm just going to get some kitchen roll. I'm going to dab that into the hand sanitizer gel and see how well this does dilute this marker here, which may or may not be alcohol marker. Yeah, that does seem to be alcohol marker. That is reacting to the hand sanitizer gel and kind of diluting out there. I think that's working really well to smooth out those pen marks there and make it look as if it is more of a cloudy, wispy steam kind of effect going on. And once I've gone over the outlines there with the white gel pen, once we've done the background, I think that will work quite well. And that shouldn't affect any pencil that we have actually got down already. Although if I do want to do a night sky with alcohol markers, that would affect any alcohol marker that goes on top. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful and not get it on the background too much. Let's use those greens to shade this kind of necklace or collar that we have going on here as well. so much shading actually needed there because we don't have any of the pen lines coming through. So I'll just add in a little bit of shading towards the bottom of the collar, maybe a few little white gel pen highlights, or even a white Prisma. Okay, I'll add in some little stickers along the edge of her hat there. There we go. I fiddle around with the pattern a little bit there. And now I will definitely have to be careful not to put a lot of pressure onto this magazine because it will be denting this cover page here if I do squish down on it too much. For these wings here, I think these are also alcohol markers, so there's not going to be any erasing or any diluting this with water. I'm going to try and shade maybe with this colour here. And this one is the purple that we did use as a kind of mid-tone on these poofy sleeves. And as these are alcohol markers, pretty definitely now, after finding out how they react to the sanitizer gel, I'm just going to shade and add a little bit of white highlight, I think, because alcohol markers are a lot smoother when it comes to pen strokes. You don't really get many pen strokes or streakiness with alcohol markers too much. So I think that's all we need really. Maybe blend out that white a touch. This is the azalea pink that we've used a few times already, I think, and I'm just bringing that in to shade these feathers on the wings a little bit. Again, alcohol markers, so shouldn't really need a lot of shading or blending out of pen marks because there aren't any pen marks to be blending out here. So I am coming in with the pencil for a bit of shading for these pink feathers. Keeping them as pink because I think, yep, that fits in quite nicely with our colour scheme. It works well. So I'm staying with the original artist kind of idea here. A few little white highlights with the white Prismacolor. And I might come in with the mulberry, the dark purple, just to add some, some deeper shadows there between the feathers maybe. Does make a little bit of a difference. I'm not going to go too overboard on the feather texture here. Just a suggestion of it with some very light gel pen kind of dabs here with the white gel pen. Okay, to keep going with the metallic kind of theme, I'm going to come in with the gel pens here. This one is a kind of a brown glitter gel pen, which I think might work for this kind of bronze colour that's already down. Just adding a little bit of glitter to what is actually there already. And the gold for this kind of ring here. A little bit of adjustment to my shading there in this kind of area. I didn't think my little cogwheel was standing out enough, but we've got that working now, I think. Enough of a shadow there to show that her wing is actually behind her body with a bit of luck. So I'll just go ahead and shade this wing here as well. Okay, her skin should be fully dry now, so I'm going to try shading her skin. I've never really tried shading skin with Prismacolors before. This one is called Pink Rose, PC1018. So I had to actually stop filming there for a second. I've gone ahead and filled in some shadows onto her face. I'm not entirely sure that will be showing up on screen because I want to keep her skin fairly pale. I'll try to adjust the colours in editing to make them look as if they are showing up a little bit better. But the main colours I am using here are the this one is called Chestnut to fill in these darkest areas of shadow. I'm blending that into the Pink Rose, which is PC1018. The Chestnut is PC1081, just to be confusing. I've also got the Light Peach, is this one? Deco Peach, and 1013. And I'm planning on using the cream and also the white for blending. I'll possibly bring in a little bit of the Azalea Pink to give us some blushy cheeks. Yeah, a white highlight there through the top part of her nose, possibly on the chin coming into the light there. And I said we were going to give her some blushy cheeks, so here's the Azalea Pink. dark shading, I think, around the edge of her face there. We will need dark shading under the chin. Separate out the chin from the neck to show the chin is further ahead than the neck. We'll probably need a darker shadow as well under that hat. There's usually quite dark shadows each side of the nose and under the lips, so I'll make sure that those are there. That's the darkest shadows. We don't want the chin to be too prominent, so I'll try and blend that out a little bit. That's working pretty well. I don't want to mess with it too much in case I do end up spoiling it, because yeah, I'm not not an expert on shading skin with the Prismacolor pencils, but I'm quite happy with how that is going. So we do have a few little extra bits of skin here, her fingers and her arm. And after that, I think all we have is her hair and the background. So yeah, we're cracking on with this now. And her hair here does seem to be kind of two-tone. We have two different tones of yellow, if those are showing up. We have this kind of lighter lemony yellow, and we have this darker colour. I'm not entirely sure whether to turn the yellow into a lighter brown or keep with the actual yellow blonde that we might be going for there. I'm not entirely sure. How well does the white work on top of the yellow? Let's see. The white does knock this lemon yellow back quite a lot. So we might be able to actually go for a kind of a blonde colour here. I think we have earrings here, which I will go over with the gold just to make them different from her hair. So I don't actually colour them as hair, which I might actually do if I don't fill them in. So let's just fill those in with the gold gel pen for now. Which might actually come in on this little mechanical heart as well. I forgot all about that. But we'll do her hair, yeah. And then we've got a few little bits and bobs all over the place to be doing. Okay, let's start with this kind of lighter blonde. I'm just putting in a few shadows here with Espresso. This is a Prismacolor pencil. Probably not the best pencils to probably pick to be colouring hair, but we do have quite small sections, so I don't think I'm going to be going too crazy with the strand lines or anything like that. We have 50% French grey. I do find when I'm colouring blonde hair, I do like to bring in greys to add the shading and give a more of a natural pale colour rather than a bright yellow. So I'm hoping this will work in this case. We are working on top of quite a bright yellow though. And as well as the white, I have here the 10% French grey to also hopefully dull down that yellow and give a more blonde rather than a bright yellow look to her hair. Okay, I think that's working quite well for a light blonde. Now we want to go on to more of a golden sort of colour there, I think. Maybe we can bring in this bronze colour. This one is called Bronze PC 1028. Maybe we'll bring in the espresso colour for the darkest areas also here. And I'm thinking maybe a sort of cream colour. That's not terrible. This one is from the Astra Pastelo pencils. Kind of a golden, creamy sort of colour. So we do have here the two different shades of the blonde hair without actually going into yellow. Okay, yeah, that's looking slightly more natural there. Hopefully that is what was originally intended. A little bit of white here as well. Pull out a few highlights here and there. The paper isn't so burnished in places. I quite like how that's working. We have got the two tones of blonde hair going there. So I'm just adding in a few white highlights with the gel pen. There we go. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. And we can see the difference there we've got going on. We've got a kind of a more natural colour over this side now, just by doing that little bit of shading. We can compare it to the other side and see that we have got that softer blonde colour instead of the bright yellow, and I think that's working really well. So I'll go ahead and colour the other side of her hair now using the colours that I did show you, and then catch up with you again. That's really not very interesting doing the same kind of hair over and over again, so I'll catch up with you in a few minutes. There's a slightly more subtle two-tone hair there. Okay, I'm going to fill out her face now. I'm going to make her lips more of a kind of dull red to match her kind of jerk in here a little bit. So I'm going to do the shading with the mahogany red. A little bit of azalea pink there. And we'll give her some white highlights. Lovely. She seems to have some kind of icy blue eyes going on there. So let's see what we can do with that. Bringing in a blue from the Astra Pastel pencils there. So that is a slightly darker kind of tone than what we've already got going on there. So I'm making a little shadow along the top of her eye where the eyelid would be casting a little bit of a shadow, and adding in kind of suggestion of the lines that you do get in the iris of an eye. Her eye has been coloured in the colour of the skin, so I'm just going to go lightly over that with the white pencil just to make it look as if it is more of the white of an eye than anything. And then we come in with our usual highlights. We do have a big highlight already, so a big one, a little one, and shine lines. Big one. Where did I go with my little one? Little one, and shine lines. Oh, there's some lovely bright eyes there looking out from her face. We could actually go in with some highlights on the edges of her jawline, which is what I do like to do on my faces. Brighten that up there very slightly. Okay, let's sort out this little mechanical heart we've got going on here before we shade the bridge a little bit. That will be dark, and in the background this kind of bridge here with the factory chimneys. So I'm not going to be too fussed about getting lots and lots of detail going on there. So for this mechanical heart, let's bring in the gold for a few bits to pick some parts of this out. Which shall we go with this lightest colour here? We'll come in with the gold. This gold pen is running out a little bit, so hopefully this will last to pick out some nice metallic bits here. That's about it. And I'll come in with the brown copper colour pen as well. Add a few more little metallic bits here. This is a zebra Dula gel pen. Glitter gel pen. It's a brown, but it does look a kind of nice bronzy colour or copper when you do put it down on the paper, so I do quite like it. We also have a silver gel pen here, so we can go all out with the kind of metallic looking elements inside this heart sort of clockwork. Pick out a few bits here. Maybe that little lever there should be silver as well, looking at it. Okay, to make these little circles around the outside of the heart here stand out, we could do those with the silver pen as well. Make it stand out a little bit more than the red. So that is changing slightly from what is originally there, so a little bit different than our starting image. And what I was doing was bringing in a sepia colour pencil here to go around the edge of this kind of orange in the inside of the heart, just to add a little bit of shadow to that. I think it does need a little bit of shading around the outside. Could we stand to bring in the black? I'm not sure. Might be a little bit too... No, we could stand to bring in the black, just around the very edges. And a little bit of the lighter orange to show the contrast with the shadow, maybe. Give a bit of depth to that box. It's very fiddly little details, but yeah, I think we've done our best there. And how to make this heart look as if it's kind of metallic. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll try coming in with this white pencil for highlights here. I did try a little bit of a darker red shading, but that was blending in too much into the background of her her top and her clothes here, so I'm going to leave that without any extra shading. I think I might just leave that as is now. Now for this outside background. All right, let's shade this bridge and the factories a little bit. This is a chestnut. Just adding a little bit of shadow to this brown here. We don't want too many details here, so I've gone in with the chestnut, I think, and this is the bronze, same colour that I used on her hair. This does seem to be kind of a golden yellow in the background. This bronze colour is a nice golden kind of yellow. You can even come in with the white just to blend that in and add a little bit of highlight, and it seems to be making it look a little bit grimy and dusty. And yeah, fits in well with that steampunk kind of environment, I think. We don't want the background to have super much detail because it is in the background. And most of the work is already done for these chimneys, so I think just adding a few maybe little highlights around here to even out the pencil a little bit there, or even out the pen rather. That would work quite well. We have 90% cool grey, so that can be a little bit of shadow. There's not much detail here to be actually trying to pick out, so we just want it to be factories in the background and not much more than that. That's looking fine to me. And what I was planning on trying to do in the background is a little bit of a gradient again. Just while I'm thinking about that, I'll fill in this little clock face here if you don't want it to be perfectly white, so I'll just bring a little bit of the warm grey in there. That's 10% and 50% of the warm grey, just to make sure our hat isn't completely white there. Okay, that'll work, I think so. I'm going to grab some alcohol markers and we're going to try and get a little bit of a gradient going on in that background. Give a little bit of a nighttime sky, maybe going from dark at the bottom up to lighter at the top. Okay, I had to stop filming there for a little bit as my son came back from school, but I have gone ahead and created a bit of a gradient with my night sky in the background there, as you can see. And I did that to practice shading with alcohol markers. Or blending with the alcohol markers rather. So I picked out a few shades of alcohol marker from my Hoo set, and I started with this one here, which is PB4 Napoleon Blue. I tried to blend into shades that were fairly close together, gradually getting further up towards a light blue towards the top of the page where the moon comes in. So the blending should hopefully be a little bit smoother than I have achieved in the past. And with this dark blue, I was coming up to about this kind of level here. So I think about up to there. We'll have this one come up into, as I wanted the bottom part of the page to be fairly dark, I came up to about here with the first, alcohol marker. And I blended that one into PB3, which is cobalt blue. I'm trying to work fairly fast as well, so they don't get much time to be drying in between. And we don't get the streakiness on the paper that you can get with alcohol markers. They do have a little bit too much time to dry. And I went into PB6, which is royal blue. Taking that one up to, we've come a little bit high with that one, but I think we should still be good. And the last one is B64, which is Indian blue. And with this one, I filled right up to the top of the sky. On the other side of the page, the moon did kind of disappear as the alcohol marker kind of bled into the page very slightly, but I've picked that back out again with a gold gel pen and gone around with a black fine liner, so the moon is back. We do have our moon up there showing it is a nighttime scene. And at the top of the page, if I turn this a little bit, we'll be able to see the sky here. I do have these cloud-like kind of streaking going across here. And how I've done that is I've taken a very pale blue, this is PB1 Sky Blue, and I've drawn across on top of this darker marker here, trying to give some kind of a cloud-like areas, because if you draw with a light colour on top of a dark colour with alcohol markers, sometimes it acts a bit like a colourless blender and it takes the colour away, it lifts the colour a little bit. So yeah, we can see there that is happening. It's lifting the colour a little bit, so we've got some kind of lighter clouds coming in there. Which I did to hide the fact that my marker was a little bit streaky over here, but we won't dwell on that too much. It's giving a nice effect of clouds, so I played on it, carried it on, and yeah, we did end up with some nice cloud-like effects going on in the sky there. To add on some stars, as I've done over this other side here, how I did that, I took the white Prismacolor pencil and I drew on some circles of varying sizes, pretty small circles. These are the shine around the outside of the star. I'm not going too overboard. We don't want to drag too much attention away from our lady. And then with the white gel pen, we do a little dot in the middle of each of these circles, and that will look as if there is a star shining and making the area around it slightly lighter than the rest of the sky. Like that. You can add some white gel pen dots on their own as well for stars that are further away. And as a very last finishing touch, I went around the outside of these kind of clouds of steam. I went around the line art with the white gel pen. So there we are with our finished page. I'll zoom us out so we can see the page as a whole, and I'll maybe do a little comparison about the original page that I started and how we've ended up. So here we are zoomed out to see the finished page, and I'll pop up on the opposite side a scan of the image as it originally was when I first started. So you can see that I have given this page a little bit of a glow up, a little bit of a makeover there. I tried to stick fairly closely to what I originally started out with. I didn't really cover much aside from sticking on the crystals and maybe covering a few metallic kind of bits. I did add some alcohol marker over the orange of the belt there, as I thought that was maybe a bit too strong of an orange, so I did have to modify that a little bit as well. But everything else I've stuck to pretty much exactly what the original artist put down there. And if the original artist was you, then thank you very much, and I hope you are pleased with what I've actually done with your image in this magazine here. Personally, I am really pleased with how she's turned out. I did think that the colour palette we were originally starting with was a really cool colour palette. I really wanted to work with that. The colours have changed maybe very slightly, but on the whole I've tried to just add a little bit of shading and detail, just smooth things over. I did add a little bit of water to the pen on her face just to dull down those pen marks and give a better surface for me to be shading on top of with the pencils. Overall though, I think it's worked out really well, and that was super fun. I love working on pages that have already been started. I can't stress that enough. I love to do it, and I really want to do the same kind of technique on some of my own older work, specifically in Joanna Basford's books, where I was only using the water-based markers. I have no idea if that will react well with adding water or not, but I'd love to try and improve on those and see what was going on. My colour palettes in that book are not that great. I wasn't using much colour theory. I was just reaching for a pen and colouring with it, and that was what you got. But it would be fun to go back and actually work on those as well. And yeah, it was a really fun colouring session today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed following along with me, and it's maybe giving you some inspiration to work over pages in secondhand books that you have come across, or maybe go back to your own work with water-based markers and work on top of it and add some more shading and depth and maybe give your own work a little bit of a glow up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye.